It was Friday the 13th December. I thought it was just another ordinary night. But that phone call, at midnight, changed everything. "I'm watching you," the voice whispered, sending a chill down my spine. At first, I thought it was a prank. But then the calls kept coming. And the worst part? The stranger on the other end knew exactly where I was. My windows were open, the front door was unlocked, and someone, or something, was already inside. With every passing minute, I realized this was no coincidence. It was a nightmare I couldn't escape. But before I tell you what happened next, I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. It's because of you that we're able to continue sharing these spine-chilling stories. I'm excited to announce the launch of Season 2 of AG Horrors, and trust me, we've got even more terrifying tales lined up for you. More nightmares, more chilling encounters, and more heart-stopping moments are coming your way. Your continued support means everything, and I promise we'll keep bringing you the best in horror. Now, let's dive back into tonight's episode, because you won't believe what happens next. I used to scoff at the idea of curses, bad luck, and the spooky tales people love to tell about certain dates, especially Friday the 13th. To me, it all seemed like a convenient excuse for random coincidences, an easy way to explain things that didn't make sense. That was until one fateful night, a night that still lingers in my thoughts, a night when I realized some places hide dark secrets that refuse to stay buried. It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway. My friend Lucas had stumbled upon an ad for an old, secluded inn deep in the Ozark Mountains, a charming bed and breakfast steeped in history. He thought it would be a great chance to escape the city with a few friends, and we were all on board. The pictures of the place looked cozy. Stone walls, fireplaces in every room, a perfect autumn retreat. We booked the trip for Friday, not giving much thought to the fact that it was the 13th. I didn't grow up with those superstitions, so I thought nothing of it. That morning, the four of us, Lucas, Emma, Rachel, and me, packed into Lucas's old, battered SUV, loaded up with hiking boots and snacks enough to last a week. The drive was uneventful. The winding roads surrounded by thick forests, with the trees shedding their golden and crimson leaves. Nothing felt unusual as we arrived at the inn just as the sun was setting. The building was charming, though worn with age. Exactly what you'd imagine a century-old mountain retreat to look like. The innkeeper, an elderly woman named Edith, greeted us with a warm but slightly unsettling smile. There was something in her gaze that made me feel like she was watching us more intently than necessary. I dismissed it, assuming she was just curious about guests in such an out-of-the-way place. "Your rooms are ready," she said, handing us our keys. But then her voice dropped, and the air seemed to grow colder. "There's just one thing," she added. "The 13th room. We don't use it." Lucas, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow and chuckled. "What's wrong with room 13? He asked. Edith didn't laugh. Her expression turned serious, even somber. "It's locked for a reason. No one stays there." She turned and walked away, the sound of her heels clicking on the wooden floor. Her tone made it clear she wasn't joking, and though we exchanged a few puzzled glances, none of us thought too much of it. Still, Lucas couldn't let it go. After we dropped our bags in our rooms, he wasted no time trying to find the mysterious 13th room. The rest of us followed, half curious and half amused. The inn was like a maze, with narrow hallways and creaky stairs. But when we reached the top floor, we saw it. At the far end of the hallway was a door, just like any other, except the number 13 was crudely scratched into the wood, as though someone had tried to erase it. "Let's check it out," Lucas whispered, grinning as if daring us to follow. I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but curiosity got the better of me. "What if it's just storage? Or worse, what if Edith catches us?" Emma said, her voice low. But Lucas, with his usual boldness, wasn't backing down. He pulled a paperclip from his pocket, knelt in front of the door, and began to pick the lock. "I'll be quick," he said, giving us a wink. We all waited, our hearts beating louder than seemed necessary for a harmless prank. Then, with a soft click, the door swung open, revealing nothing but darkness. At first glance, it was just a dusty, abandoned room. Old furniture, an unmade bed, curtains drawn tight over the windows, blocking out the fading light from the sunset. But as I stepped in, a sudden unease washed over me. Something was wrong. Something that made my skin crawl. We shouldn't have been there. "It's just a room," Lucas laughed, brushing dust from a dresser, leaving a trail in the grime. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the air was thick, heavy, as if it hadn't been disturbed in years. The musty smell was overpowering, but underneath it was something sharper, almost metallic, like the scent of blood. "I don't like this, guys," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "Let's go before we get caught." I agreed. The shadows in the room felt suffocating, as though they were closing in around us. But Lucas wasn't ready to leave yet. He moved toward the bed and lifted a pillow, releasing a cloud of dust into the air. That's when it happened. The door slammed shut behind us. The sound was deafening. The air turned ice cold, and Rachel screamed, rushing for the door. But it wouldn't open. We were trapped. "Nice joke, Lucas," Rachel said shakily. But Lucas, his face as pale as the walls, wasn't laughing. He yanked at the doorknob, his knuckles white, but the door wouldn't budge. I pulled out my phone, thinking the flashlight would help. But when I turned it on, the screen flickered and died. The battery had been at 80% just moments before, but now it was completely drained. One by one, we checked our phones. They were all dead. Then we heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the far corner of the room. It started soft, like nails dragging across the floorboards, but grew louder, more insistent. My heart hammered in my chest, and I broke into a cold sweat. "What is that?" Rachel whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Lucas didn't answer, his gaze fixed on the corner. His breath came in quick, shallow gasps. "I don't know," he muttered, but the fear in his voice was unmistakable. Then we saw it. A shape, hunched and grotesque, slowly crawling out of the shadows. Its movements were unnatural, like its limbs were broken or twisted. Rachel backed into the wall, her hands clamped over her mouth to keep from screaming. None of us could look away. We were frozen, watching as the thing crept closer, the room seeming to shrink around us. The air was so cold I could see my breath. And then, it stopped. It was right in front of Lucas. I saw his eyes widen in terror as the thing reached out, its long, bony fingers brushing against his leg. He gasped, stumbling backward, his foot catching on the edge of the bed. In that instant, the door behind us burst open. Without thinking, we bolted, running down the hall and back into the lobby, gasping for air. Edith was standing there, arms crossed, watching us with those same piercing eyes. "I warned you," she said softly. "No one stays in the 13th room." We didn't wait for her to say more. We grabbed our things and left, driving through the night, the inn disappearing into the fog behind us. None of us have ever spoken about that night again. We've convinced ourselves it was just our imaginations running wild, that we let the stories get to us. But deep down, we all know the truth. That room, there was something in there. Something that should have never been disturbed. And every time I close my eyes, I can still hear that scratching, always in the back of my mind, growing louder with every Friday the 13th. It was a cold Friday the 13th, and I had just gotten off work. I didn't think much of it. I never really subscribed to the whole bad luck superstition, but there was something unsettling about that date that seemed to linger. Maybe it was the fact that my workday had been filled with weird coincidences and accidents. Nothing serious, just small things like dropping my coffee, misplacing my keys, and hitting every red light on the way home. That night, I decided to stay in. The weather was awful. Rain pounding against my windows, lightning flashing every few minutes. I made some dinner, curled up on the couch, and started binge-watching a show I'd been putting off for a while. It felt good to unwind and forget about the weird little annoyances of the day. Around 9 p.m., I heard a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and my heart skipped a beat. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there. I thought maybe it was just someone messing around, so I ignored it. But then, a few minutes later, there was another knock. It was louder this time, more insistent. I felt a cold chill run down my spine, and something about the timing made me uneasy. I decided to check again. I peered out of the peephole once more, and this time, I saw a figure standing in the hallway. It was a man, maybe in his mid-30s, drenched from the rain. He was wearing a hooded jacket, and his face was partially obscured by the shadow of the hood. He knocked again, but I still didn't open the door. "Hello?" I called through the door. "Can I help you?" There was a long pause before he spoke, his voice muffled through the thick wood. "I need help. I'm lost. Could you let me in?" I was immediately suspicious. This was a fairly quiet building, and I didn't recognize the man at all. Still, I tried to stay calm. "Sorry, I don't know you. I can't let you in." He didn't say anything for a moment, but then he spoke again, his tone turning colder. "Please, I just need to warm up for a minute. My car broke down. I swear, I'm not dangerous. I just need a phone." I didn't respond. My instincts were screaming at me to stay quiet and stay inside. I didn't trust this guy. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, and I moved away from the door, trying to calm myself. I didn't know what to do, but something didn't sit right with me. Then, out of nowhere, the lights in my apartment flickered and went out. Everything went pitch dark, and I froze. I didn't hear any thunder or see any flashes of lightning in the brief moment of darkness, so I knew it wasn't just a power surge. My gut told me it wasn't a coincidence. The man started knocking again, louder this time, almost frantic. I heard his footsteps shuffle outside the door, and then, just as quickly as the lights had gone out, they came back on. But when they did, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The figure from outside was now standing just a few inches away from my door, his hand resting on the knob, as if he tried to open it while I wasn't paying attention. I couldn't breathe. I immediately backed away and reached for my phone, dialing 911. As I did, I heard him mutter something under his breath, something that sounded like, "Please, don't leave me out here. I need you." I quickly slammed the phone to my ear, telling the dispatcher what had been happening. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and to not open the door under any circumstances. The man knocked one final time. It wasn't a polite knock anymore. It was a frantic, almost desperate banging, followed by silence. I stayed silent too, too afraid to even breathe. I was waiting for him to break in, to try something, but the longer I waited, the more everything went still. I finally heard him shuffle away, and then nothing. Absolute silence. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They checked the building, but by the time they arrived, the man was gone. They couldn't find anyone who matched his description in the area, and they found no sign of him outside. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I never saw that man again, and nothing ever seemed off with my apartment. But I still have this gut feeling that he wasn't really looking for help. He wanted something else. And that Friday the 13th, I learned that some things, some people, are better left alone. It was Friday the 13th of December, and I was completely drained. Those nights when you're too tired to even lift yourself off the couch. That was me. I was halfway through some random Netflix movie, barely paying attention, just zoning out. My eyes were heavy with exhaustion when my phone buzzed on the coffee table, cutting through the soft glow of the TV. I glanced at it. Unknown number. For a moment, I debated whether I should even bother picking it up. Who calls this late, especially on a Friday the 13th? Probably just a scammer or some automated call. But curiosity got the best of me. With a sigh, I reached for the phone and swiped to answer. "Hello?" At first, there was nothing. Just silence. I held the phone tighter, straining to hear anything. Then there was breathing. Slow, heavy, deliberate breathing, as though someone wanted to make sure I heard it. I frowned, my skin prickling. "Hello?" I said again, louder this time. Still nothing. Just that eerie, rhythmic breathing on the other end. I rolled my eyes, feeling a mix of annoyance and unease creeping up my spine. Probably just some jerk messing around, playing a prank. I hung up and tossed the phone back onto the table with a frustrated sigh. I tried to refocus on the movie, but my mind kept drifting back to the call. I convinced myself it was nothing, just some random weirdo who dialed the wrong number. No big deal, right? But then, just 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same unknown number. My irritation flared. I grabbed it again. This time I didn't hesitate. I swiped to answer it, bringing the phone up to my ear. "Who is this?" I snapped, expecting either silence or more of that creepy breathing. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a voice. Software low, almost a whisper. "I'm watching you." My heart skipped a beat. The words sent a chill down my spine. I froze, gripping the phone tighter. The exhaustion I'd felt just moments ago replaced by a rush of adrenaline. I looked around the room instinctively, but everything seemed normal. Dim, quiet, the TV flickering in the background. "Who the hell is this?" I asked again, trying to sound more annoyed than scared, but my voice faltered. No answer. Just a long, deliberate pause. Then, the call ended. I froze, my mind racing. "I'm watching you." The words echoed in my head. I tried to tell myself it was just some idiot playing games, but the chill in my spine wouldn't go away. I scanned the room slowly, trying to shake off the paranoia when I saw it. The living room window, wide open. My breath caught in my throat. I shot up from the couch, heart pounding. I never leave that window open, especially not on a cold December night. The chilly night air drifted in, making the curtains rustle slightly. I could feel the coldness on my skin. My fingers fumbled as I slammed the window shut, locking it tight. My hands shook as I pulled the latch down again, just to be sure. How long had it been open? Had someone been watching me this whole time? The thought knotted in my stomach, but I shoved it down, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Then, the phone rang again. Same unknown number. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for a moment. My gut screamed at me to ignore it, but something inside compelled me to pick it up. It was like I had to know what they were going to say next. With trembling hands, I answered. "Hello." My voice barely a whisper. There was a pause, and then that same voice came through. Calm, almost amused. "You're wasting your time." My throat tightened. I'm already inside. A cold wave of terror washed over me, and I backed away from the window, scanning the room wildly. My heart pounded in my ears, every beat louder than the last. Already inside. Already inside. I bolted toward the front door, my hands shaking as I grabbed the handle. Locked. I checked the back door. Locked. I ran to the kitchen, throwing open drawers, searching for something. Anything. A knife. Anything to defend myself. My fingers brushed against the cold steel of a blade, and I gripped it tightly. The weight of it did little to calm my nerves. I checked every window, all locked, every door, every entry point sealed. I should have felt relief, but that knot of dread in my stomach only tightened. Something was wrong. I knew it. The house felt too still, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Then I heard it. The faintest creak from upstairs. My body reacted before my mind did. I bolted up the stairs, adrenaline pumping through me like fire. My legs felt heavy, my breath coming in panicked gasps. My bedroom door was slightly ajar, just as I'd left it. But now, it seemed ominous, like something was waiting for me on the other side. I threw open the door and grabbed the baseball bat from the corner, gripping it tightly in my sweaty hands. My knuckles were white as I held onto it like it was my only lifeline. I swept through the room, checking every corner, behind the door, under the bed. Nothing. My heart pounded in my ears. The rush of blood was deafening. I forced myself to check every other room, bathroom, guest room, hallway, closet. Empty. But the feeling wouldn't go away. That gnawing sensation that someone was watching me, waiting. I stood in the middle of the hallway, my chest tightening. The silence of the house pressed in on me from all sides. Just as I was about to retreat downstairs, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I nearly dropped the bat in surprise. Slowly, I pulled the phone out, hands trembling. The screen lit up with a new message. No number, just the words, "Check your closet." A cold wave of terror washed over me. My stomach dropped. How did they know? How could they possibly know what I was doing, where I was? I stared at the message, trying to make sense of it, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. Maybe it was a sick prank. Maybe I had imagined everything. But I knew better. My heart pounded as I turned toward the closet door. It stood there, looming in front of me. The same ordinary closet I always used. But now it felt wrong. Like something was hiding inside. The air was thick with tension as I took a shaky step closer. The door creaked as I slowly pulled it open, the dim light from the bedroom spilling inside. I held my breath, ready to swing the bat at the slightest movement. Nothing. It was empty. Clothes hung neatly, shoes piled on the floor. Just a regular closet. I exhaled, my body sagging with relief. But that feeling of dread didn't leave. Something was still wrong. I stared at the inside of the closet, scanning every inch, every shadow. That's when I saw it. The vent. Small. Hidden near the bottom corner where most people wouldn't notice it. But now it was slightly ajar, the cover barely hanging on. I crouched down, heart pounding in my ears as I peered inside. The darkness seemed to stretch back farther than it should have. It went deep into the walls of the house. The air inside was cool, damp, and I could swear I heard the faintest rustle of movement from within. I wasn't alone. There was something, or someone, inside the walls, and it was waiting for me. If you've experienced a terrifying event or have a horror story to tell, we at AG Horrors want to hear from you. Share your experiences with us on Reddit, and let's uncover the mysteries hiding in the shadows together. And if you want to support the channel and help us bring even more terrifying content, consider checking out our support options on Patreon or Ko-fi. Your support means the world to us. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling stories like this one. And now, stay tuned for the next horror episode.